We have to move straight on now to panel 5, which is energy transition as part of the climate change agenda and solution. And what a critical topic this is. And it's already been touched on a little bit through the day. So I'm really looking forward to this. Good friend of mine, Luca Corradi, who's Innovation Network Director from OGTC, is our moderator. Luca, over to you.
So why don't we keep and proceed with the introduction. Bethan, Vasey, Business Manager, Energy Transition Upstream from Shell. I guess you're dialing from Aberdeen?
Yeah, dialing in from Aberdeen indeed. Hi, afternoon, Luca. Afternoon, everyone. Great to be here today. Thank you.
I'm Bennett, Vice President, DNVGL, and also Head of Energy Transition, if I understand rightly, Graham?
That's correct, Luca. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for inviting me onto the panel.
And then going on, Philip Black from Wood Global Emerging Solution Lead in Digital and Technology. Hi, Philip.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good afternoon. And Jason Olbekson, I hope I said that right, is a GTM Director for Salesforce.
Hey, Luca. Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. You said it perfectly. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. It is, I think it's great representation here, a great selection covering the whole areas of the oil and gas industry, from the operator to the service provider, and all the stakeholders and players in the industry. So I'm kind of looking forward to the panel discussion. If I can take just a couple of minutes to frame the challenge and to share also a little bit about what the OGTC that I represent is and what we're doing. That'd be great, and then we can move on into Q&A. So for those who are not aware, the OGTC was created, opened the doors in 2017 from investment from the UK and Scottish government, with the goal and objective to co-invest and co-develop new technology for the oil and gas industry, and that in the hope and in the goal to make the industry more efficient. And it's been a good success story so far in these 4 years now, because we've invested in more than 200 projects, technology projects, more than 150 million co-invested with industry, and brought more than 20 new technologies onto the market. But of course, that was the goal, the original goal of 2017. In these 3 years, a lot has happened. We knew climate change from before, but the scientific evidence have never been so clear from the 2018 IPCC report and in the UK with the Committee on Climate Change. And that led to the legislation of putting targets for being net zero by 2050 in the UK and 2045 in Scotland. So we have just published, and is available on our website, a report which is called Reimagining the North Sea and an integrated energy vision, a report which has been done in partnership with the offshore renewable energy catapult. And this already is telling you the direction and the evolution of the oil and gas, because so far oil and gas and renewable have been very distinct and separate industries. And I think this is going to change, and it's going to change with the introduction of integration with oil and gas and renewables, hydrogen, green and blue, and carbon capture and sequestration. And this is because the world is changing. But the world is changing. This integration will still see a lot of oil and gas in the picture, and that will be for quite some time. However, an important thing is oil and gas needs to decarbonize as well. Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions to start with. We need the oil and gas in the system for some time during the transition. What we don't need are the emissions associated with the production of oil and gas, which are currently around 18 megaton per year in the UK. And so decarbonizing oil and gas production is a strategic priority. Integrating the offshore energy industries is another priority. And now our new roadmap at OGTC reflects that. We are focusing now on developing technology for a net zero North Sea, and focus on emission reduction, integrated energy system, and the automation and digitization of the industry, both oil and gas and renewables and carbon capture. And so with this framework, I think this panel is really about energy transition. And it's not a matter of if, it's how quickly can we make it happen, and what are we doing? And so I'm really looking forward to hear from the perspective of an operator like Shell, from the supply chain would DNVGL, and for a technology and digital service provider like Salesforce, what is going on and how is energy transition impacting your organization? What does it mean for your organization? Is that an opportunity? Is that a threat? How are you reacting to it? And maybe if I can start with Bethan, and we can hear from Shell, and then we move to the other ones, it would be great.
Thanks, Luca. Sure. Great. So great question and great start. And all of those topics are definitely hot topics at the moment. So for Shell, the energy transition is definitely a huge opportunity. In fact, it's a business imperative. It's one of our core strategic pillars as a company, which is to thrive in the energy transition. So as Luca's mentioned, I'm based in Aberdeen within our Upstream operations, and I lead our energy transition team here in Aberdeen, which was actually formed at the beginning of this year. So we have a dedicated team looking at this space, and we're responsible for the actions that we're taking in both reducing our own operational Scope 1 emissions, as well as looking at those energy integration and new business opportunities. So both of those elements are very much part of my portfolio, and both equally important, as Luca has said. So, at Shell, we really wish to be part of the energy transition. In fact, it's vital. We know we're on a pathway to a low carbon future. And the challenges of COVID this year do not change the fundamental challenge, which is the long-term challenge of climate change. So, and as Luke mentioned, we need the energy that's provided at the moment by oil and gas, but we need to also transition towards a lower carbon future. So the world needs to move fast to transform its energy systems. And earlier this year, Shell set out its global climate ambition, which was to be a net zero energy company by 2050 or sooner, in line with society. So, we're on this pathway, we're on this journey, and we certainly need to take action in the short, medium, and longer term. So today, I'm really looking forward to providing some of the upstream context, as well as underlying the role of digital technologies, which are absolutely a vital part of the energy transition, from our own energy efficiency and improving what we can do there, as well as the energy efficiency of our customers, the role of technology and digital in how we can monitor both emission sources and emission sinks, and the role that digital and technology can play in really transforming how we design and operate low carbon energy systems in the future. So really exciting, and glad to be here today and to dive deeper into what we're working on, and what our plans for the future are. So I'll maybe pause there and let some others chip in as well, and then we can come back.
Thank you, Bethan. And Graham, if I can come to you next. You published, I think, in September, an energy forecast. And so, can you just give a very short highlight of the key point in the perspective of today's discussion, but also may highlight what the DNV GL role, what role are you playing in transition? What are you bringing to the party?
Yeah, thanks, Luca, and thanks to the organisers for the invitation. Transition of all forms has always been key to DNVGL, ever since we were founded way back in 1864, writing the rules for the design of wooden sailing ships. We've transformed on a number of occasions through the years, and one of the key things that's led that transformation process has been our investment in innovation. And we invest 5% of our annual revenues each year in innovation to help us work with our customers to develop new recommended practices, new standards, for maritime applications, for oil and gas applications. And then increasingly, as we started to move into the early 2000s, we started to write our first recommended practices on carbon capture and storage. We began to see that there was an emerging need to decarbonize and to do that deeply. So we started to recognize the need to develop new solutions for the challenges of carbon dioxide emissions. We also recognized through that process that we needed to understand the energy transition much better. So we started to build our own horizon scanning tools to start to look at how the energy system in the world would transform based around all of the key things we've heard about today, the critical data that we need to have on population, on GDP, on climate change, on markets, on economies, on technologies, and all those things we were able to start building into a global model of energy supply and demand. And for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been publishing that energy transition outlook every year and making it freely available, including all of the data that comes out of the model. You can download that for free from the DNVGL website. In terms of highlights, what does the ETO tell us in 2020? Well, very much the same sort of trajectory that we've been seeing for the last few years, that of a slow move towards decarbonisation, but a process that is not moving fast enough to meet our Paris climate goals. We certainly see rapid growth in electrification, and DNVGL are probably one of the most positive forecasters out there when it comes to the increasing use of renewable electricity in our power systems, and the rise of things like electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles in particular, in the transport market. Nevertheless, we have a system today which is 80% molecular energy based. It's based on hydrocarbons. Even by the time we get to 2050, the challenge is still that our energy system will still be based 50% on hydrocarbons and on that molecular energy that goes into the 6,000 daily products that we use every day, from plastics to fertilizers to pharmaceuticals to paints and dyes to the things we're all wearing and consuming every single day. So our challenge is, how do we decarbonize that molecular energy? And that's the next emerging opportunity for us, particularly in the area of hydrogen and carbon capture and storage, which will enable us to achieve that decarbonisation of the molecular energy that we will continue to need to use right the way out to the 2050s. So I'll probably leave that there for the moment, Luca, and hope to get some opportunity to exchange some ideas with my fellow panelists.
Thank you, Graham. And maybe building on that, you mentioned that it's not moving fast enough. So maybe, Philip, from the wood perspective, you, of course, work in many industries, in many sectors, so you're probably in a privileged position to see if the transition is happening, how much work you're getting from oil and gas and how much from the renewable or other sector, and what type of work you're seeing. So maybe you can give a perspective from your view. Is it moving fast enough? Are we embracing new technology fast enough?
Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I think it's moving very quickly. As a UK company, we're part of the commitment to reduce our carbon footprint, as well as help the entire industry. I think one of the benefits that working with companies like Wood is that we can work not just with a specific facility, but we can work in areas to create these hubs, these new energy hubs, where hydrogen or other types of energy can be collected and then transported. You have to get the collection of carbon, if you're doing carbon capture, to scale. You have to get enough of it together. You have to find out what the opportunities are and how they can combine and where the highest return on your investment is in order to achieve these goals. So Wood is, and not only are we committed to helping industry, all the industries we work with, decarbonize, we're on a journey ourselves to try to lower our carbon footprint and get a better handle on all the different sources that we are a part of and that we contribute to, whether it's scope 1, scope 2, or even scope 3. So I think that's a place where Wood is helping a lot, not just in oil and gas, but in other areas such as mining, and even pharmaceuticals, trying to help all the different companies, because it's going to take all the different companies combining together to achieve these goals.
Thank you, Philip. And Jason, if I come to you, because we talk about technology a little bit, we're going to talk more about technology, but of course, a big trend of the past, probably 40 years, but really the past 5 with a dramatic acceleration is the digital revolution, and you're really at the heart of it. So maybe from your perspective, what do you see happening in the world of oil and gas in respect of energy transition and digitization?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And we obviously are a technology software company, so we come at it with a little bit of a different lens, and we really think digital platforms can help drive oil and gas companies towards carbon neutrality. So strategic use of technology and process improvements are really critical to create that sustainable future. And there's a couple aspects of it. The first one I like to say is, you can't improve what you can't measure. So companies need to streamline the way they track and analyze emissions. And Salesforce is an interesting position to help companies do that because our own our own sustainability journey is pretty interesting. Where back in 2015, we were trying to, streamline some of our initiatives, track, report, improve. And it would take 6 months to actually do the carbon greenhouse gas accounting. Greenhouse gas accounting is as tedious as it sounds. And so since we are a technology company, we actually looked internally to some of our own tools and said, how can we improve this process? And we built our own capabilities to do this on our own technology. And we took that time from 6 months to 6 weeks. And actually in 2017, we achieved carbon neutrality. A little easier for us because we're not an oil and gas company. Most of our greenhouse emissions are, travel and real estate, but we were able to achieve carbon neutrality. And then we worked with a consortium of other sustainability professionals to actually commercialize our sustainability accounting application and offer it on the market and kind of share it with others. So we're helping scale the way other companies are digitizing their sustainability journeys by offering a sustainability accounting application to really help companies set targets, monitor progress, engage stakeholders, and provide that single digital platform for planning and execution. And the second aspect of it, what we see is a lot of our companies, Shell, I know, is doing a lot of this, is really rethinking their energy portfolios to pivot to greener technologies and kind of accelerate the transformation. And what we think, and when we talk to our customers, is when they do that, they really need agile, adaptable technologies to make that transition because they're onboarding new acquisitions, they're adapting new processes, they're developing new business models. And you can't wait for 18 months to deploy some outdated technology. You need to move at the speed of now and get new capabilities, new processes embedded into your workflows as soon as possible because it's a bit of a moving target. And then the last aspect I would say when I talk to my customers is taking a broader ESG initiative, and that ESG is really driving that. And a key component of that is that societal license to operate. So a key component of this energy transition is really engaging with stakeholders outside your organization to kind of own the narrative about what you're doing as a company to drive that energy transition. So a couple ways we're seeing technology play a key role in the energy transition.
Wow, a lot of food for thought there, and maybe Bethan, I come back to you. I'm not sure where to start here. There's an element of measuring, that Jason raised, and transparency, and I think the public opinion is demanding more and more transparency on the level of emissions, both scope 1, 2, and 3. But also an element that both Graham and Jason raised about the portfolio diversification, and Graham said 50% will be still oil and gas for some time. So what's Shell direction? Is like Ørsted just moving away from oil and gas and becoming a renewable company? Is BP becoming an integrated energy company? Or recognizing that a lot of oil and gas still need to be done, but needs to be done responsibly, and therefore sticking with oil and gas and doing something different? What's your view of what's Shell doing, and what's your view of what should other companies do as well?
Thanks, Luca. So maybe just to take a step back. So oil and gas and the industry as a whole has got a strategically significant role to play in the energy transition, and the role that it can play in helping the UK and Scotland achieve net zero. So we've had this 50-year record of innovation. We're supporting, hundreds of thousands of skilled people, and we've got that determination to deliver world-class energy projects. We also need to work with others because, as has been said earlier in the day, this is not one company and one project alone. So, that skills and expertise needed to drive partnerships and new partnerships for the future energy transition. But we at Shell, we need to earn that right as well. So we need to take tangible and concrete actions today in order to decarbonize our own operations, as well as supporting others to decarbonize theirs. And that's what you see in the Shell climate ambition, where there are the different elements of achieving net zero on our own operations by 2050 or sooner, to reduce the energy intensity of all of the energy products that we sell. So that includes increasing in our portfolio the proportion of green energy and others, and then supporting others to decarbonize. And for me, that's also around, especially in the upstream, the role of oil and gas and blue hydrogen, and how we can support other industrial partners and customers to decarbonize. So we've been working this year very hard on the energy transition, as a lot of others have, both internally and externally. So earlier this year, Oil and Gas UK, along with the industry as a whole, showed leadership by setting ambitious targets to reduce scope 1 emissions. So first of all, back to the measurement, as an industry, we need to understand what our own scope 1 emissions are, where they come from, and what can drive reductions as an asset level, or even deeper at an individual device level, an asset level, an operator level, and the industry as a whole, in order to then drive change. So measurement is a very hot topic with my team at the moment. So yeah, to reach those targets that were set of a 50% absolute reduction in operational emissions by 2030, and to be net zero by 2050. So we have to also bear in mind, that was also mentioned earlier, that production emissions from oil and gas account for about 4% of UK total emissions, but the use of hydrocarbon products in our system accounts for 80% of the UK's emissions. So across industry, power, heating, transport, each of these sectors need focus and support in order to succeed in the energy transition. And Shell as a company can play a role in each of those, and you'll see that in the experience that we've got both in the UK and elsewhere across the whole value chain of energy. So it's I'm based in the upstream, but beyond there are many opportunities and a role for Shell to play.
Thank you. And maybe if I can ask now each of you to rapidly fire up, given this is a technology-related conference, which technology are you betting on? And maybe if you can give one digital and one non-digital technology, and why you think that would be kind of crucial for the decarbonization of the industry, for the transition, or for your company in particular. So I'm going to start with Graham. Graham, which technology are you betting on? What are you going to see if you put your money on the table for that?
In terms of what we see both from the energy transition outlook and the technology outlook that we publish, I think if I pick one from each of those, then I think for the energy system as a whole, the role of hydrogen in particular is key, because as Bethan just said, we need to decarbonize multiple sectors, and hydrogen has the ability to achieve deep decarbonization in industry, in domestic heat, and in transport, and in power generation to replace CCGTs. If I was to look at a digital solution, it would probably be around the issue of autonomous operations. How do we reduce the hotel loads on offshore platforms by increasingly automating functions? How do we do things more remotely from the offshore installations of the future? So I think probably the one key thing from a digital perspective for me would be autonomous operations.
Thank you. Philip, your view? What are you betting on at Wood?
Yes, I would say Wood has a huge focus on hydrogen production, and the associated carbon capture. We've been doing steam methane reforming, deploying those technology for many years now, and we're working on ways to make that increase the efficiency, increase the output of hydrogen, but with a lower amount of CO2. So I think Wood is very focused on the hydrogen and the associated carbon capture, because you've got to move from just the hydrogen created by burning another fuel to being able to recapture that, and then eventually move to biofuels and further with renewable energy.
And from a digital perspective, Philip, if we can stay with you, Graham mentioned automation, and of course a lot of the Wood business is actually manpower to the industry. Is that changing? Is that moving? Is that a threat, an opportunity for the supply chain?
I think it's an opportunity. It's simply an opportunity of moving the amount of activity we have. We have a very large automation division that works across the world in manufacturing, oil and gas, chemicals, mining. So I think we see a transition from just providing manpower to providing automation as well to the different facilities in which we provide services. I think we're ideally suited knowing how the operations work by providing the manpower. We can go in there and better automate the solutions and sites to achieve better results than just, say, someone coming in from with no experience running a facility doing automation.
Jason, what are you betting on? As a software company, you will tend sometimes to forget the importance of software and focus on the big, hard technology like hydrogen, carbon capture, but there's a lot of digital behind that. What are you forecasting to do in the next 5 or 10 years in the oil and gas industry?
Yeah, and obviously I'm a little biased because I work for a technology company, so we think we have a big role in that. But I think from a broader perspective, I really would echo some of what Graham said is, he talked about autonomous operations. I kind of think of it as emerging technology. So really betting on operationalizing emerging technology to help drive the energy transition. So in my mind, that means things like IoT, artificial intelligence, analytics, to really drive smarter interactions and better decision-making across the process to help drive carbon reductions. I think all those emerging techs are going to play a big role over the next 18 months to 5 years.
So thank you, and Bethan, back to you with the same question. Which technology is Shell betting on, and maybe if I can ask to make it a bit tangible, if you want, right? So we are about to enter 2021 after annus horribilis of 2020, in which all sorts of things happened. Of course, with a bigger pandemic, but that is the pandemic changed the way we work. The energy transition is steaming ahead. Digital is more pervasive than ever. So what is going to be different in 2021 in the world of Shell?
Well, I was also going to echo what my colleagues on the panel were just saying as well about the technology. So first of all, from the technology side, I would say CCS and the association of blue hydrogen with that are vitally important to the industry as well as to Shell. We're one of the industry partners contributing to the ACORN project led by Pale Blue Dot, looking to decarbonize operations at St. Fergus, but also produce blue hydrogen and capture CO2 from other sources. So, continuing to play an active role in that project, as it will definitely be stepping up in activity next year across a number of the different elements in the project, and it's really exciting. And it's the only industrial decarbonisation hub in Scotland, so the role that it can play in Scotland specifically is really exciting for the energy transition story next year. On the digital side, so yeah, for me, it's the interface between the people and the sort of the digital tools that we can have, and we can deploy much faster. And so we're already in action on a couple of things around providing frontline staff with access to emissions data in real time, and then looking at how AI can be used within that to help support decision making at the operational level in order to reduce emissions. So me, that's really exciting. And it also links into the people, which is vitally important in this space, because it is also about not just technology and digital, but in a way, we're on this cultural change journey as well. So the energy transition is not done by one small team in any one company, but it needs to be part of the way that everybody does business. So the way that we can use digital tools with all of our frontline and project staff, for me, is super exciting. And so there's more to develop and to roll out next year in that space as well. So yeah, next year will definitely be a further ramp up from this year's hectic year, I would say. So internally focusing on further plans and execution of abatement projects for our own Scope 1 emissions, as well as developing those projects which are looking to contribute to broader industrial decarbonisation across the UK. So both very exciting and active areas, which will require digital support for both of them.
Yeah, Luca, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I would like to jump in because I love what Bethan just said about the people aspect. So I think that's a often overlooked aspect, is kind of the indirect benefit of a digital work environment where you really enable employees to have kind of a unified view of what's going on with emissions. You promote collaboration, you encourage employees to connect, innovate, collaborate. It provides accountability. So I think that often is overlooked. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that and say I love that, because we're seeing the companies. I have 1,000+ customers across the digital work aspect of it, the kind of people aspect, to help drive and foster collaboration, innovation, et cetera, to help drive the transition. So just wanted to kind of emphasize that, because I love hearing that from some of the operators.
That's a very good point. And actually, I wanted to build up a bit more on the people side, because we mentioned blue hydrogen, and maybe for the people listening to us, blue hydrogen, just clarifying, blue hydrogen is the hydrogen that we can produce from natural gas with the associated carbon capture and storage, contrary to green hydrogen, which is produced through electrolysis from renewable sources by splitting basically water in hydrogen and oxygen. And so, but a lot of emphasis on blue hydrogen, a lot of emphasis on carbon capture and storage, and on digital. Do we have the skills, and how or what do we need to do to build the skills for this transition? Who wants to start?
I can start with that one. Oh, go on, someone.
It's a massive challenge, Luca, and it's a good point you make. The energy transition is a huge challenge for all of our industries, but it's also a huge opportunity for new skills, for new learning. If I look at one of the areas where I do a lot of work with the UK gas networks, decarbonising domestic heat requires us to replace the heating systems in 22 million homes to either something like a heat pump or a hydrogen boiler or a hybrid system of some form. Even if you were to look at starting that process in 2025, that's almost 1 million properties a year that need to have energy efficiency improvements and need to have new heating systems installed. That's a huge demand for reskilling of the workforce and provides a massive opportunity for retraining. But we need to be able to be pushing that message through at the universities and schools levels to get people enthusiastic about the wish to work in engineering to support those transformation projects.
Bethan, you were...
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt, Graham. I've done a lot of thinking about this, so I was so keen to jump in. We have so many very skilled and experienced people at Shell, as well as in the oil and gas industry. So for me, many of those skills are required for the energy transition, whether it's subsurface, process, even commercial and regulatory expertise. There's a lot that we have that is relevant and is going to be vitally important to deliver. So deploying the staff that we already have towards energy transition projects is one area that we're already doing when we look at the team that's supporting ACOR and other projects. And then it's about engaging also the wider virtual campus this year, at least, in the energy transition and making everyone understand the role that they can play and connect with it. So we have a grassroots organization called the Future Energy Lions, and that's where people voluntarily get involved and come up with bright ideas, maybe slightly out of the box thinking, not related to their day job necessarily. It's a way to engage with the energy transition in a different way for them. And we also organize a lot of lunch and learn with both internal and external speakers. And I was even reflecting this morning, even my own story. So I'm a chartered civil engineer and project manager by background, having worked on brownfield, greenfield, and prior to this role on decommissioning. So to take the skills that I've built up with a broad company like Shell and put them then towards the energy transition and how we can shape the future and the energy systems that we need to achieve net zero, which I have a lot of passion for, but I can also bring that skill set to it. So it is really exciting. But also Graham's right, we still need a lot of technical staff and graduates. We need people to be involved, and we need also a diverse workforce that is reflective of our customers as well, so that we are building those strong companies and those strong project teams that will be needed to deliver some quite challenging, not just the projects, but also these real systematic changes in the energy system in the years to come. So it's very exciting, but there will be a skills challenge. And I saw in the OGTC report from yesterday, the potential that we have here to grow and maintain and build the capability in the UK, specifically in this energy transition arena. So it's a big opportunity, and it's one that we do need to act on now.
And that's a very good point. If you look at the digital, in the past 4 to 5 years, we've been talking about the need to attract more digital savvy or data analysts or data scientists, etc., to the industry, and the challenges of attracting them to what is perceived not to be a target industry destination for new graduates in digital disciplines. Do you see that changing? Do you think what we see at OGTC? We see a number of companies growing up, startup and scale up companies in the space of digital AI, machine learning, etc. But within your sector, within the supply chain, for example, Philip or Bethan in the operators, you think you have the digital skills you need, or you're still struggling to get them as it appeared to be 2 or 3 years ago?
I think we're ramping up very quickly. We have a strong focus on digital and technology to try to get the younger workforce excited about working in oil and gas specifically. Also, we're doing a lot of partnering, which we have not done before, but we're partnering with technology organizations. And I think that's one of the best ways to rapidly ramp up any technology provider role. It's the ability to work with Microsoft, to work with startups like Cognite, and get those companies, who have a background sometimes in oil and gas and technology, but sometimes just technology, give them the ability to get an introduction into how oil and gas works. So we're taking assets we have, taking resources we have that are working in mining, and being able to redeploy those. So that's one of our big focuses, is on making sure that not just we're attracting new talent, but that we're taking all the technical skills that we have and making sure that the engineers and people in the offices are able to use technology, the newest technology, effectively.
Hey, Luca. It's Stuart here. Really sorry to interrupt. We've got 5 minutes left, and we've got a couple of questions that have come in that if I can throw them into you. The first one is from Swapan Saha, who asked a pretty fundamental question. Why is suddenly hydrogen so important now? Why wasn't it important in the past? So what's changed? So I think it's not just the obvious, because now we need heat and transport, but kind of why not 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago? Second question is actually linking back to the start of the day. At the start of the day, there was kind of a fundamental, is digital key to the UK being competitive for future energy transition exports? So linking formally, how important is digital in the energy transition space, or do they just run in parallel and they're not really that important to each other?
All right, so maybe if I give a very quick start to the first question and then see anybody want to chip in. Hydrogen becomes more important because we're targeting the last hard to decarbonize sectors. When the target was an 80% reduction, a lot of that can be achieved by other means, electrification. When you have to decarbonize 100%, that remaining 20% is made of industry, heavy industry, is made of heavy transport, airspace, and etc. So that's where, and heating, of course. For that part of heating that cannot be decarbonized for electricity. So I think that's why hydrogen, the vector hydrogen, becomes an important part of the puzzle. It is not the silver bullet that might appear from many of the hype that is going on in the past few months, of course, because it comes to the fore, but is an important part of the jigsaw. So that would be my response to that. And maybe, Graham, from your forecast and analysis, you've been doing that for a few years, or you've probably seen hydrogen becoming more important. What's your take on that?
I think the key thing is one of commercial reality. I think if you go back 10, 20 years, you'll find that hydrogen has been spoken about many times in the past, but it was always an expensive option. And to be realistic, even today, it would still be a more expensive option. Now, the thing that's changed, of course, is the pressure on decarbonisation and the fact that really now there is no alternative. We need to move much faster than we've moved previously, and hydrogen can enable that. But we shouldn't kid ourselves that it doesn't come at a cost, at a commercial cost. And of course, what we need to do in this energy transition is also find ways of making that transition just, because as has already been mentioned, we need to produce hydrogen through electrolysis of water, perhaps, or more likely in the period up to the early 2030s through reformation of natural gas. So you're adding a cost to gas, you're adding a cost to an existing hydrocarbon. It will cost more. Now, in the past, that's not been a realistic alternative, but now there is no alternative. We really do need to use this as part of one of the key catalysts to achieve that deep decarbonisation that we must enable.
Thank you. Anybody want to start on the second question?
I can hop in. I can't speak much about hydrogen, but when digital technologies, I think these are critical. The question was about UK, but any country, any company, I think it's going to be critical. Digital platforms are going to be the enablers to amplify and accelerate the energy transition. And I think whoever can move fast and kind of adapt quickest is going to be a leader, whether it's a country or company. And I think strategic use of digital technology is going to be a critical key component of that. And having agile, adaptable capabilities, platform capabilities is really critical to that in my mind.
Okay, anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah. And I think one of the key drivers of the technology adoption has to be taking technology, not just within oil and gas, but taking technology from other areas, other industries, and sharing that technology. There has to be a better way of taking something that mining has done, for example, and using it in oil and gas, or taking something from oil and gas downstream and applying it to upstream. So I think the key is really getting the technology soup almost. You get it all mixed together, and that way you can allow everyone to benefit from something that's been previously hidden in one specific area.
Thank you. And Stuart, guide us. Are we up with time?
Yeah, we are very sadly out of time. It's been a fascinating discussion.
Good. So with that technology soup image in my mind, I figured that's a way to close. I'd like to thank you very much, all the panelists for the discussion. And Stuart, is over to you.
Thank you so much. Great panel. Good job, Luca.